The desert moon of Haruma stretched endlessly beneath twin suns that burned like molten coins. Wind dragged fine metallic dust across the horizon, painting the air with the scent of scorched iron. Malik Carter's boots sank half an inch into the sand with every step. His oxygen readout blinked yellow. 40 minutes left before dehydration set in. He cursed softly under his breath, his voice muffled inside his cracked helmet. The landscape felt both alien and familiar. Something about the stillness reminded him of the dry Texas plains his grandmother used to talk about, how the air could shimmer with heat and loneliness at once. Out here, thousands of light years from home, that memory kept him steady. He spotted the wreck before the scanner did, smoke rising faintly, dissolving into the blinding light. A small craft, half buried in silver sand, its wings torn apart by the crash. As he approached, he noticed strange carvings etched along the hull, elegant, spiral-like patterns, not human. Then movement. A figure slumped beside the wreckage. Her skin shimmered faintly like copper dust, and her breathing came in shallow bursts. Malik froze. A Harun, one of the desert nomads who rarely trusted humans. Her robe was torn, revealing scaled arms marked by ceremonial tattoos. Her eyes fluttered open, catching his reflection in their mirrored depths. He knelt beside her, his instincts battling with exhaustion. His training whispered, "Don't interfere." His humanity answered louder, "Help her." "Hey," he said quietly through the translator mic. "You hear me?" The alien blinked, lips trembling around foreign syllables. Malik didn't understand the words, but the sound carried fear, and something older, something sacred. His canteen hung by his hip, almost empty. 2 gulps of water left, maybe 3. He hesitated only a moment before unsealing it. "You're not dying alone out here," he murmured, lifting her head gently. The metal of her skin was warm to the touch, her pulse faint beneath it. He tilted the canteen, and a droplet rolled down into her mouth. She flinched, then drank greedily. Her voice trembled, the translator catching only fragments. "Human, kind, water sacred." Malik nodded. "Yeah, it is." She smiled weakly, placing a trembling hand over his wrist. The gesture needed no translation. Gratitude radiated from it, raw, unfiltered. He looked up at the endless sky, the twin suns blurring his vision. Somewhere in that light, he thought of his grandmother's words. "Never let another soul thirst in your presence, child. Water is life. Share it, and life will remember you." He didn't believe in omens. But out here, beneath 2 merciless suns, belief was all he had. He stayed with her until her breathing slowed to a whisper. She touched her chest, then gestured weakly toward the dunes. "My sons," she said. "Tell them Rihanna found peace." Malik swallowed hard, unsure if the translator had caught her last words or if he only imagined them. When the light in her eyes faded, he sat silently beside her body. The wind had shifted, gentler now, as if bowing in respect. He dug a shallow grave using the emergency spade from his pack, laying her in the sand and covering her with metallic dust until she vanished into the desert. He found a shard of her ship's hull and pressed it into the mound, carving a rough symbol like the ones on her arm. It wasn't her language, but it was the best he could offer. Standing, he whispered, "Rest easy, Rihanna." The suns began to fall and long shadows crept across the dunes. His visor flashed another warning, dehydration critical. He tightened his canteen to his belt, now empty. The horizon shimmered again, but this time it wasn't heat. Silhouettes, tall, broad, and moving fast. His pulse quickened. He reached for his pistol but didn't draw it. Whatever was coming wasn't just wind. "If stories about courage and compassion across the stars move you," he murmured, a wry smile tugging at his lips, "make sure to subscribe before we go deeper." He turned toward the figures advancing through the haze. Somewhere deep inside he felt it, the first ripple of something bigger than himself, carried on the dust between stars. The figures from the horizon emerged through the dust like ghosts of the desert, tall shapes wrapped in crimson cloth and bone armor. Malik froze, heart pounding, unsure if they were real or tricks of the heat. But before he could react, they halted, watching him from a distance, silent and motionless. The sun caught their metal ornaments, turning them into moving fire. Then, as quickly as they appeared, the shapes dissolved back into the haze. Malik let out a shaky breath. His mind felt heavy, his throat raw, his lips cracked from thirst. He couldn't afford to chase hallucinations now. The wreck behind him groaned as the heat twisted its metal, and the grave of the alien widow shimmered faintly under a veil of dust. He knelt again beside it. Something inside him resisted leaving so soon. "You got your peace now, Rihanna," he said softly. "Guess that's all any of us really want." From his pack, he pulled a piece of cloth, one he'd kept since his days on the freighter Umoja, a faded kente pattern his grandmother had given him when he'd left Earth. He laid it gently across the grave. The desert wind caught its edges, folding it like a final prayer. As he stood, the exhaustion hit him full force. His helmet filters struggled, his oxygen low. He forced his legs to move, stumbling toward the ridge where his ship was parked. Each step was agony, each breath thin as paper. Halfway there, his comms crackled to life. Static, then a fragment of a human voice, faint but unmistakable. "Malik, you read? Cargo deadline, what's your status?" He laughed dryly. "Status? Lost in a frying pan, that's what." He switched off the comm again. No one out here would understand what had just happened. No corporation cared about a dead alien widow in the middle of nowhere. But he did. By the time he reached the edge of the dunes, twilight had painted the sky in bruised purples and copper. The twin suns were sinking behind a ridge of broken stones. Malik turned once more to look back at the grave. The metallic sands shimmered under fading light, and for a moment he thought he saw the faint outline of a figure kneeling beside it, a mirage maybe, or a memory already forming. He whispered, "I'll tell them you found peace," unsure who he was promising that to, her, himself, or the universe, listening in silence. Inside the ship, the recycled air was cold and dry. Malik dropped into the pilot's seat, peeled off his gloves, and ran his hand across the console. The ship hummed weakly, the systems low from standby. He reached for the canteen, tilted it, and frowned at the hollow rattle. Empty. He set it on the dash and stared at it for a long time. That single act, pouring the last drops into a dying stranger's mouth, had left him weaker, thirst clawing at his throat. Yet, somehow he didn't regret it. The universe was cruel, but not empty. That thought steadied him. He activated the internal recorder, his voice low. "Personal log, coordinates Haruma Delta 7. Found one survivor of Harun clan transport, widow named Rianha, died after rescue attempt. Burial completed." He hesitated. "She wasn't human, but she was somebody's kin, maybe somebody's mother. I gave her water." Figured that counts for something. The hum of the ship filled the silence that followed. Malik leaned back, eyes half closed, exhaustion creeping in. Outside, night fell quickly on Haruma. The wind softened, carrying distant tones, like the low hum of an ancient song echoing through the dunes. He thought again of his grandmother's words. "When you pour water, you give a part of your soul." Maybe that's why he felt lighter, despite the thirst. Maybe kindness was its own kind of survival. He reached over, dimmed the cockpit lights, and let his gaze drift toward the stars rising through the viewport. Each one shimmered like a promise waiting to be tested. Then, just as he began to drift into uneasy rest, a faint tremor shook the ground beneath Umoja. Not thunder, too rhythmic for that, like footsteps. Malik's eyes snapped open. His hand went instinctively to the sidearm clipped to his belt. The sensors blinked. Movement. 3 life signatures, approaching fast. He didn't move, didn't breathe. His pulse thundered in his ears. Outside, the desert sang again. The tremors grew heavier, steady, deliberate. Malik's sensors confirmed 3 heat signatures moving in formation toward the ship. He didn't need the screen to tell him what they were. He could feel it, that same silent authority he'd felt when he laid Rihanna to rest. He rose from his seat, heart steady but alert, hand resting near his sidearm. Outside, the wind shifted again. Through the viewport, 3 towering figures emerged from the haze, armored in sand-stained leather and bone, carrying long rifles etched with clan symbols. Their movements were fluid, purposeful, not hostile, yet far from relaxed. Malik hit the external comm. "Identify yourselves," he said, voice low but firm. For a few seconds, only static answered. Then a deep, resonant tone broke through, guttural, rhythmic, like language wrapped in thunder. The translator flickered, struggled, then finally spoke. "We seek the one who touched the water." Malik exhaled slowly. "You found him." The hatch opened with a hiss. The heat struck him like a wave, but the air between them was colder than space. The tallest of the three stepped forward. His eyes were a reflective bronze, his face marked with the same spiral tattoos as the woman he'd buried. "You," the alien said, voice filtered through the translator. "Human who gave life to one who was dying." Malik nodded once. "Rihanna. I found her near the wreck. I tried to save her." The alien tilted his head. "You buried her." "I did." Silence stretched between them, heavy and electric. Then, in unison, the three knelt, pressing one knee into the metallic sand. Malik froze, unsure what to do. The leader spoke again. "She was our mother." The words hit him harder than the desert wind. He looked at them, really looked. The strong bone structure, the gold tint in their skin, the way their eyes didn't hide pain. They were warriors, yes, but also sons grieving in the only way they knew. Malik lowered his head slightly. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't know." The leader rose, his expression unreadable. "You shared your water. You gave her breath for one more moment beneath the suns. For that, the clan of Haroun owes you life debt." Malik frowned. "That's not necessary." "I didn't do it expecting anything back." Another of the brothers, younger, broader, with faint scars across his jaw, stepped closer. "To deny the debt is to dishonor the mother's spirit." Malik's instincts screamed to de-escalate, but something deeper told him to listen. He nodded. "Then I'll accept your thanks, nothing more." The three exchanged glances, murmuring in their native tongue. Then the leader spoke once more. "You may call me Dar. These are my brothers, Tua and Mekra. We guard what remains of our blood. From this day, we guard you as well." Malik blinked, caught between disbelief and awe. "Guard me? I don't need—" "Need does not matter," Dar interrupted calmly. "You poured water into the sand for her." The sand remembers. Something about the way he said it sent a chill down Malik's spine. There was conviction there, not servitude, the kind of vow that could outlive both men and stars. He glanced back toward the grave over the dune, now barely visible under the fading light. "She mentioned her sons before she passed," he murmured. "Said you should know she found peace." For the first time, the stoic facade cracked. Dar's chest rose sharply, his throat vibrating with a low hum, a sound that carried grief and pride in equal measure. The younger brothers bowed their heads. "You carried her name," Tua said softly. "Then her peace reaches us through you." Malik didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to reverence. The silence between them stretched long enough for the stars to appear overhead. Finally, Dar looked toward Umoja, the ship's hull gleaming under starlight. "This vessel, it bears the name of Unity." Malik nodded slowly. "Yeah, Umoja. My grandmother named it. Means unity in Swahili." Dar's eyes flickered with recognition. "Then perhaps the ancestors of your kind and ours are not strangers." Malik smiled faintly. "Maybe not." The brothers stepped back, forming a loose perimeter around the ship. It wasn't a threat, it was ritual, protection. The gesture felt sacred. Malik climbed the ramp slowly, glancing over his shoulder once more. The three stood motionless under the starlit sky, watching silent guardians bound by honor. He whispered to himself, "Guess I've got company now." But as he sat back in the cockpit, a question lingered, quiet and sharp. What kind of debt ties strangers across worlds like this? Outside, the desert wind carried no answer, only the hum of loyalty beginning to take shape in the dark. The suns rose red over Haruma, bleeding light across the dunes as if the planet itself carried old wounds. Malik stood outside Umoja, arms folded, watching the horizon turn gold. Behind him, the Haroun brothers worked silently, their tall frames moving with the quiet discipline of people who had learned to survive by rhythm, not chance. He had slept little. The night had been heavy with questions. Now the dry wind pressed against his skin like static, carrying the faint sound of chanting. Dar and Tua were kneeling near Rihanna's grave, their voices deep and resonant, chanting words that even the translator couldn't capture fully. It wasn't just mourning, it was remembrance, a thread tying the living to the dead. Malik felt something shift inside him as he watched. It reminded him of the old spirituals his grandmother played on cracked vinyl when the power went out back home. Songs that kept people alive when nothing else could. He didn't understand the words, but the feeling, that raw faith in the face of loss, he knew that well. When the chanting ended, Dar rose and approached him. The morning light caught the silver lines of his armor. "We honor the one who carried our mother's last breath," he said. "Now we honor the promise she made through you." Malik frowned. "Promise?" "Rihanna's last words spoke of peace," Dar said. "Her spirit cannot rest until that peace is kept. You are part of that vow now." Malik shook his head. "I'm no prophet. I'm just a pilot trying to keep my ship running." Tua joined them, his tone softer. "Among our people, a promise shared through water binds both souls. You gave her that water, human. You are kin now." The word kin landed heavy. Malik stared at the sand beneath his boots. Back in the old neighborhoods on Mars Colony, kin had meant survival, watching out for your own no matter what the world threw at you. That memory warmed him and weighed him down at the same time. "I didn't ask for that," he murmured. "Neither did we," Dar replied, not unkindly. "But the suns do not ask before they burn. Duty is chosen by action, not by will." Malik met his gaze. The man's eyes were fierce, but not cruel. He realized Dar wasn't demanding allegiance, he was offering it. "Fine," Malik said finally. "If I'm bound to your family by what I did, then I'll carry that with respect. But I can't stay. I've got work to do, cargo to deliver, debts to pay." "Then we go with you," Tua said simply. Malik blinked. "Go with me?" Dar crossed his arms. "Our mother's body rests here, but her spirit follows you. We will not let harm reach the one who honored her." Malik looked from one to the other. Their faces held the kind of resolve he couldn't argue with. "You even know how to fly?" Mekra, the youngest, grinned, a flash of gold teeth between scaled lips. "We know how to fight, fix, and survive. Flying cannot be harder than that." Malik chuckled despite himself. "You haven't seen the Umoja's engine bay yet." The brothers exchanged curious looks. Malik sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "All right, you can help with repairs. But once we're space ready, you choose your path. I'm not dragging anyone into my problems." Dar nodded solemnly. "We choose freely. But understand this, Malik Carter. When the Haroun bind their word, it is stronger than metal. You are our brother now." Brother. The word hit him deeper than he expected. He hadn't heard it spoken that way since his own family was scattered across colonies, chasing work and hope in equal measure. He turned toward the ship, catching his reflection on the steel hull, dust-covered, tired, but alive. For the first time in years, he didn't feel entirely alone. Behind him, the brothers began gathering tools, speaking quietly in their native tongue. The rhythm of their voices mixed with the hum of the morning wind. Malik looked out over the dunes one last time and whispered, "Guess I've got a new crew." But as he glanced up at the rising suns, he couldn't shake the thought that every bond came with a price. And he'd just accepted one he didn't yet understand. The Umoja lifted from Haruma's surface with a low, rumbling grace. Metallic dust spiraled around the landing gear as Malik guided the ship upward, feeling the familiar vibration of the thrusters through his palms. The Haroun brothers stood behind him in quiet observation, their tall frames swaying slightly with the movement. For a moment, Malik let himself believe things were normal again, just another job, another route. But the silence in the cockpit carried weight. Destination set, Malik muttered, locking coordinates. Freeport Relay Hub, Delta Sector 4, routine cargo drop. We'll be in and out. Dar studied the nav screen. Routine, he repeated, testing the word like it didn't belong in his mouth. Human commerce hides its wars behind that word. Malik smirked. You're not wrong. He opened the mission file from his client, Orion Freight Logistics, a neutral shipping outfit, at least on paper, but Malik knew better. Out here, neutrality was just another business strategy. Every crate, every manifest was a gamble between law and shadow. Tua leaned closer to the display. These markings, he said, pointing to a cargo code. So you carry weapons? Malik frowned. No. Supposed to be mining equipment, power cells, drills, hydraulic tools. The alien's bronze eyes narrowed. Your words and the markings do not match. A cold unease stirred in Malik's gut. He cross-checked the code through the ship's system. The result blinked back in red. Orion Syndicate. Tier 3 restricted cargo. He swore under his breath. They lied. Mekra tilted his head. You trusted them? I trusted the credits, Malik admitted. That's usually enough. Dar folded his arms. Your human corporations trade like scavengers in the night. They bring war to our worlds and call it business. Malik turned sharply. You think I don't know that? I fought in those wars. I carried crates just like these for people who didn't care who burned as long as the shipments got through. I'm not proud of it. The tension hung between them, thick as smoke. Then Dar's tone softened. Yet you choose differently now. That is what matters. Malik didn't answer. He opened the cargo bay feed, the screen showing sealed containers stacked neatly in the dim light. We'll confirm what's inside once we reach orbit. If they're smuggling weapons through me, I'll dump the whole load into space. Then you'll have enemies, Tua said. Wouldn't be the first time. The ship broke through the upper atmosphere, stars blooming across the viewport. Malik exhaled slowly. Space always did that to him. It stripped everything down, leaving only truth and breath. Hours later, while the ship drifted in autopilot, the Harun brothers began inspecting the hull. They moved like craftsmen, not warriors, tracing the panels and murmuring in low tones. Malik joined them, curious. What are you saying? He asked. Tua smiled faintly. Our people believe metal remembers its maker. We speak to the ship to know its spirit. Malik chuckled. Then what's Umoja telling you? She is weary, Dar said simply, but proud, like her pilot. Malik paused, surprised at how much that line hit home. Guess she's stubborn too. They worked through the night cycle repairing minor heat fractures with the Harun's biometal paste. The material glowed faintly, bonding with the hull in ways human tech couldn't replicate. Malik watched the process with awe. You could make a fortune selling this stuff, he said. Dar shook his head. Not everything sacred can be sold. The words settled into Malik's mind, heavy with meaning. By the next solar rotation, Umoja cruised through the black expanse of the outer route. The cargo still sat untouched, humming faintly with concealed energy. Malik stared at it from the monitor, jaw tight. I've seen too many people lose themselves for a paycheck, he said quietly. Not again. Tua placed a hand on his shoulder. Then you have already chosen who you are. Before Malik could reply, an alert blinked red across the console. Long-range scan detected. Multiple signatures approaching. Unknown origin. Dar's voice turned sharp. We are being watched. Malik straightened, every muscle tense. Yeah, he said, eyes narrowing at the approaching blips. And something tells me this cargo's not the only thing dirty in this deal. The warning lights pulsed like a heartbeat. Malik's eyes flicked across the screen. 3 unidentified crafts closing fast from the starboard vector. No beacon, no transponder, no broadcast code. Pirates or syndicate? Maybe both. His throat tightened. Brace yourselves, he muttered. We've got company. Dar leaned forward. They follow your cargo. Yeah, Malik said grimly. And I'm starting to think I'm the real delivery. The ships drew closer, small and sleek, combat skiffs designed for fast strikes. Malik threw the Umoja into a roll, but their sensors locked on instantly. He'd seen this tactic before. They'd chase him low, force him to land, then strip the ship for parts and bodies. "Strap in," Malik shouted. "I'm taking us down." He slammed the thrusters and dove toward the orange blur of Haruma's horizon. The descent was brutal, the hull shaking under the friction. Heat alarms screamed. The Harun brothers gripped their harnesses, unflinching. Tua's voice cut through the chaos. "To the desert. The dunes can hide us." Malik nodded, teeth clenched. He leveled the ship as the ground rushed up. Those same metallic sands, endless and cruel. The radar flickered from the static interference of the planet's magnetic storms. They hit the surface hard. Dust exploded around them, swallowing everything in bronze fog. The engines whined down to a low growl. Silence but for the hum of the cooling system. Malik's breath came fast. "Everyone okay?" Dar unclipped his harness. "Alive." Mekra checked the scanner. "They follow. They do not land. They circle." Malik swore under his breath. "They're scanning for heat signatures. We stay still. Maybe they'll think we burned out." Tua's tone was firm. "No. They will not leave until they see bones." He was right. Syndicate pilots didn't waste fuel unless they meant to finish a job. Malik's mind raced through his options, and none looked good. Then Dar's deep voice broke the tension. "You shared water with our mother. Let us return that gift." Before Malik could stop him, Dar and his brothers moved with purpose, gathering from their packs small orbs of dark material that shimmered faintly in the dim light. "What are those?" Malik asked. "Echo mines," Mekra said. "They confuse eyes and ears." Malik blinked. "You've been carrying weapons this whole time?" Dar gave a rare grin. "Tools, human. Every tool becomes a weapon if used right." They exited through the hatch, their tall forms vanishing into the swirling dust. Malik watched the radar anxiously as the enemy crafts began sweeping lower. He clenched his fists. "Don't you die out there!" Minutes dragged. Then through the static came a flash on the scanner, explosions of heat signatures all around. The orbs detonated, each one sending up a burst of electromagnetic noise and shimmering illusions. The Syndicate ships swerved violently, confused by false readings. On the horizon, the mirages looked like dozens of Umoja replicas glinting across the dunes. Malik's lips curved into a small, disbelieving smile. "Damn. That's clever." He reopened the hatch just as the brothers returned, dust-coated but unharmed. "It will not last," Dar said. "They will see through the ghost soon." "Then we move." Malik powered the ship back to life, the engines coughing through the grit. The Umoja roared forward, kicking up a storm that swallowed their trail. The sky darkened as a sandstorm brewed, the kind that could strip a ship's hull bare if caught too long. Malik flew low, using the storm as cover. Static danced across the controls. Mekra grinned through the turbulence. "Now the desert fights for us." Malik shouted over the noise, "Remind me to never underestimate y'all again." As lightning cracked across the orange sky, the Syndicate ships disappeared into the chaos behind them. Hours later, Umoja hovered over a canyon of jagged stone. Malik landed between two cliffs, engines cooling. For the first time since dawn, quiet returned. He turned to the brothers, eyes tired but grateful. "You saved us." Dar shook his head. "You shared water first. This is only balance." Malik leaned back in his chair, exhaling deeply. "Balance, huh? I'll take that." Outside, the storm howled like an ancient drum, and Malik realized something new. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was part of something larger, something bound by honor stronger than any contract. And somewhere beyond the dunes, the Syndicate had just learned that chasing a human pilot with Harun kin wasn't business, it was war. Malik woke to silence and pain. His shoulder burned where the shrapnel had cut deep during the escape. The air inside Umoja was thick with dust and the faint tang of ozone from overworked circuits. He groaned, forcing himself upright, the cabin tilting slightly under the weight of repairs half done. Tua stood near the medical console, mixing a shimmering blue gel inside a cracked canister. "You should not move," he said, voice steady but concerned. "The wound is not sealed." Malik gritted his teeth. "It's just a scratch." "It is not," Dar replied from the corner, his arms crossed. "You bled for us. Let our hands return that gift." Malik tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough. "You Haroun really love this balance thing, don't you?" Tua stepped closer, the gel glowing softly in his hand. "Our balance keeps the suns from swallowing us." He pressed the mixture to Malik's shoulder. It was cool, almost soothing, until the sting hit, a deep electric burn that made Malik's breath hitch. "Damn," he hissed. "That's not medicine, that's lightning." Mekra chuckled low. "Pain means life returning." Malik shot him a glare, but couldn't help smirking through the pain. "You've got a messed up way of doing healthcare." The gel settled, merging with his skin in faint metallic lines. Tua watched closely, his tone softening. "Your body will remember this wound. It will learn to heal faster next time." Malik blinked. "You're telling me I'll grow back stronger?" "That is how the desert teaches," Tua said simply. He leaned back, exhausted, the throbbing subsiding into a heavy ache. For a while, no one spoke. The hum of the ship filled the silence. Malik studied the three brothers as they worked, how they moved together without words, how they shared glances that spoke of trust forged long before he arrived. He envied that connection. "You three ever fight?" he asked finally. Mekra grinned. "Every morning before the sun's rise, it reminds us we are still brothers." Dar gave a sharp look, but a small smile betrayed him. "We do not fight," he said. "We test each other's truth." Malik nodded slowly. "That's familiar. My brother back home used to test mine too, usually with a broken jaw." Tua tilted his head. "And you miss him?" "Every day," Malik admitted quietly. "Haven't heard from him in years. War scattered us across colonies. Guess that's how families go sometimes." Dar's voice softened. "Blood separates easily. Spirit takes longer to forget." Malik met his gaze, feeling something unspoken pass between them, understanding born from loss neither could undo. The ship creaked under shifting heat. Outside, the canyon wind howled like a living thing. Malik's stomach growled, breaking the moment. "I'd kill for some real food," he said. Mekra rummaged through a storage unit, pulling out sealed rations and a pouch of dried alien fruit. "You will not kill," he said, smirking. "You will eat." The taste was sharp, metallic, with a hint of sweetness. Malik chewed thoughtfully. "Not bad. Kind of like tamarind if it came from Mars." Dar studied him. "Your tongue speaks of home often, yet you do not wish to return." Malik shrugged. "Home isn't a place anymore. It's whoever still remembers your name." Tua placed a hand on his shoulder, the one not wrapped in biogel. "Then today, you have three who remember." The words hit Malik harder than he expected. He swallowed, hiding it with a quiet nod. Outside, the first light of morning stretched across the canyon walls, painting the metal sand in crimson. Malik stared at it, realizing how strange comfort felt after so long surviving alone. Dar's voice broke the stillness. "The Syndicate will not rest. They lost their prey, and men of profit do not forget humiliation." Malik flexed his newly sealed shoulder. "Then we'll be ready next time." "You say that with pain still in your veins," Tua warned. "Yeah," Malik said, a slow grin forming. "That's how I know it's real." For the first time, all three brothers laughed, a deep, resonant sound that filled the ship with warmth stronger than the sun's. But beneath that laughter, Malik's thoughts drifted to the horizon. Somewhere beyond the dunes, a storm of vengeance was building, and he could feel it waiting for him. The Umoja slipped through the darkness like a heartbeat between stars. After days of drifting through dust and static, Malik finally saw the glowing outline of Zambezi Station, a vast orbital hub spinning against the velvet of deep space. Its rings shimmered gold and blue, carved with designs that echoed old African geometry, triangles and spirals pulsing with energy. Even from this distance it looked alive. "Home," Malik murmured. Tua studied the station from the viewport. "You humans build your cities in the sky. Do you ever rest?" "Rest?" Malik grinned faintly. "That's what we call work when it's someone else doing it." Dar leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed. This place, it sings with many tongues. Zambezi's a crossroads, Malik said. Traders, smugglers, preachers, and dreamers. Every color, every creed. You'll see food that glows and music that moves the floor. Some call it chaos, I call it alive. The hum of the ship filled the silence that followed. For the brothers, who'd known only desert winds and survival chants, the sight of a city orbiting a gas giant must have felt like stepping into another universe. Malik remembered his first arrival years ago, broke and hungry, staring at those same lights. Back then, he'd promised himself never to need anyone again. Funny how that vow had already broken. As they approached the docking corridor, Malik's comm crackled. Unregistered freighter, identify. This is Umoja, Cargo Class 9, Captain Malik Carter. Sending clearance now. The operator hesitated, then replied, You've got friends waiting, Captain. Try not to make new enemies this time. Malik smirked. No promises. When the docking clamps engaged, a faint vibration ran through the ship. The Harun brothers exchanged wary looks. Relax, Malik said. Station's got its own rhythm. You'll get used to it. They stepped out into the corridor. The air was thick with spice and metal, the walls covered in murals and hollow posters, flashing advertisements in Swahili, Yoruba, and English. Voices echoed in dozens of accents, laughter mingling with the low thump of drums from some unseen bar. Mekra turned slowly, eyes wide. Your people carve light as though it were clay. Malik smiled. Yeah. We learned to shape survival into beauty. He led them through the bustling ring toward the market levels. The walkways curved in spirals lined with vendors, solar fabric tailors, kinetic jewelry artists, preachers selling redemption encoded on chips. Malik inhaled deeply, catching the aroma of roasted plantain and fried algae oil. It almost smelled like earth. A saxophone echoed from somewhere nearby. Not synthetic, but real, the kind that cracked and breathed. The notes wound through the station like memory. Malik stopped walking, caught in it. Tua noticed. This music. It calls to you. My grandmother used to play it, Malik said quietly. Said jazz was proof humans could turn pain into sound and still make it holy. Dar listened for a moment, then nodded. Your people and ours share that gift. We survive by rhythm. They continued on, stopping at a repair dock to offload the damaged parts. The mechanic, a tall woman with skin the color of bronze and hair braided with fiber optics, raised an eyebrow. Malik Carter. Thought you were dead. He grinned. Almost was. You fix miracles today, Nia? Only if you pay triple, she shot back. But her smile softened when she saw his bandaged shoulder. You still take care of everyone but yourself. Old habits, he said. While Nia's crew worked, the Harun brothers explored quietly, observing the human bustle with fascination. Dar ran a hand along the station's wall, murmuring words that sounded like a prayer. Malik watched him curiously. What's that mean? Dar looked up. We thank the metal for holding life. We do not take walls for granted. Malik's eyes softened. Neither do I. Hours passed before Umoja was ready again. Malik stood at the bay doors, gazing out at Zambezi's expanse. The floating market lights, the shimmer of ships weaving through lanes, the pulse of a civilization that had built itself from scraps of struggle and brilliance. Tua stepped beside him. You built this sky, he said, and still you search for belonging. Malik's voice was quiet. Yeah. Maybe that's the price of being human, always searching, never stopping. Below them, the station's lights reflected in Malik's eyes, merging with the stars beyond. Somewhere in that endless stretch of black, destiny waited, silent, patient, watching. Sleep came fitfully aboard Umoja. The hum of the engines usually lulled Malik into calm, but that night his mind refused silence. He dreamt of the desert, the shimmer of twin suns, the dying widow whispering through cracked lips, "Water is sacred." Her voice rippled through his sleep like waves striking stone. When he woke, his throat felt dry, his palms slick with sweat. The cabin lights were low, painted gold by Zambezi Station's glow through the viewport. Malik sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. He glanced at the canteen resting on the console, refilled, full again, yet the sight of it made his chest tighten. He remembered how easily he'd poured the last of it into Rihanna's mouth, knowing it might kill him too. The thought haunted him. Would I do it again? He didn't know why the question mattered so much, but it did. Footsteps approached. Dar entered, silent as always, carrying 2 cups of steaming liquid. "The market calls this kahawa," he said. "Coffee." Malik smiled faintly. "You trying to get me hooked?" "Humans already are," Dar replied, handing him one. "Your traders drink it before every choice, as though clarity can be swallowed." Malik sipped, wincing at the bitter heat. "Sometimes it can." They sat quietly, the stars turning slowly beyond the window. The Haroon warrior watched them with reverence. "Each one of those lights," Dar said softly, "a drop of water in the desert of night. Small, but it keeps the dark from swallowing all." Malik chuckled. "You talk like my grandmother. She used to say water remembers everything it touches. Then it remembers you," Dar said. The words hung in the air. Malik turned the cup in his hands, his reflection trembling in the liquid surface. "I don't think I want to be remembered," he admitted. "I've done things worth forgetting." Rihanna did not think so, Dar replied. She saw the man who shared what little he had. "That act binds our clans now. You carry her memory whether you wish it or not." Malik stared out the window, the ache in his chest deepening. "You ever wonder why kindness feels heavier than guilt?" Dar's gaze softened. "Because guilt belongs to the past. Kindness demands the future." Malik didn't reply. He took another sip, the bitterness grounding him. Somewhere deep inside, that sentence struck something raw and true. Later, when the brothers slept, Malik found himself alone in the navigation bay. The stars pulsed faintly across the glass dome, their light flickering across his face. He reached for the controls and replayed the data logs from Haruma, the faint signature of Rihanna's last heartbeat recorded by his suit sensors. A fragile wave on a dead channel. He listened to it for a long time. Tua's voice startled him. "You still hear her?" Malik didn't turn. "Yeah, guess I do." "She became ancestor when you buried her," Tua said. "Among our people, that means she walks beside you now. You carry her water." Malik frowned. "Her water?" "The flow between life and death," Tua explained. "Every act of giving changes the one who gives. You shared your water, now part of you flows where she went." Malik felt the truth of it deep in his bones. "You really believe that?" "Yes," Tua said, "and so do you, or you would not lose sleep." He couldn't argue. The silence that followed wasn't heavy, though. It was quiet in the way rivers are before sunrise. Tua placed something on the console before leaving, a small crystal vial filled with faintly glowing liquid. "From Haruma," he said. "When the storm ended, the sands bled light. We gathered this for you." Malik held it carefully, watching the liquid swirl like captured dawn. It wasn't just a relic. It was proof that what he'd done mattered to someone somewhere. He whispered almost to himself, "Water remembers." When he looked up, the stars beyond seemed closer, brighter, as if listening. For the first time since Haruma, Malik didn't feel like a wanderer adrift between worlds. He felt like a man finally learning what it meant to belong, not to a place but to a promise. The peace on Zambezi Station didn't last. It never did. Malik could feel the change before he saw it, the way the air thickened with whispers, the way faces turned just a little too quickly when he passed, the kind of silence that always came before trouble. By the 3rd day, he knew why. He was eating at a small stall near the lower ring when a vendor slid him a news tablet instead of a plate. "You might want to see this, Captain." The headline flashed in sharp white text. "Orion Syndicate puts bounty on human pilot. Malik Carter wanted alive." His stomach dropped. Below the headline was a still image of his face, captured from a docking camera, eyes tired and mouth set in that same half-defiant look he always wore when pretending not to care. "Alive," he muttered. "That's generous." Behind him, Dar's voice rumbled. "They hunt openly now." Yeah, Malik said, setting the tablet down, and they're not subtle about it. Around them, the market's hum seemed to shift. A group of off-duty miners suddenly found somewhere else to be. Two android bartenders turned their heads, their lenses flashing. Paranoia seeped into Malik's veins like static. He stood quickly, nodding to the vendor. Thanks for the meal. The vendor looked away. Didn't charge you, he said quietly. Not sure I want to be on any list today. As Malik and the brothers walked through the crowded promenade, the station lights flickered. Corporate announcements played overhead, blending with the murmur of countless conversations. Malik's jaw clenched. They must have traced the cargo logs. Orion's got reach here. Tua's expression was calm but focused. Then we leave before their reach tightens. Not yet, Malik said. We need supplies, and I've got one contact who still owes me favors. They made their way to the upper rings where wealth floated in glass corridors. The contrast was jarring. Holographic waterfalls cascading into air, perfumed merchants sipping synthetic wine, their laughter echoing like chimes. It reminded Malik of Earth's old cities, beauty built on someone else's exhaustion. The contact's office sat behind a bar of polished obsidian. The sign above read Aziza Trade Network. The woman inside, Aziza herself, wore a deep indigo suit embroidered with circuitry patterns that glowed faintly when she moved. Her voice was smooth but sharp enough to cut glass. Malik Carter, she said, the man with the worst timing in the galaxy. Good to see you too, Malik replied. You still deal in quiet solutions? Aziza smiled, though her eyes stayed cold. Quiet costs more when the noise has your name on it. You've got every syndicate bounty hunter in the sector sniffing for your scent. I just need passage clearance, fresh credentials, enough to vanish for a while. She tapped a finger on her console. You're asking for ghosts, Malik. I can make ghosts, but ghosts don't pay bills. He slid a small metal chip across her desk, the vial of glowing water sealed inside a transparent casing. Trade this. Aziza examined it, curiosity flickering in her gaze. What is it? Something rare, something sacred. She looked at him for a long time, then nodded. You always bring me trouble wrapped in poetry. Give me an hour. When they left the office, Tua leaned close. You trust her? Not even a little, Malik said, but she respects the hustle. They returned to the dock to wait. The crowd there felt different now, too focused, too sharp. Malik scanned the faces, instincts flaring. His gut twisted just as the first blaster shot cracked through the air. Down! Dar roared, shoving Malik behind a crate. Energy bolts sizzled past, striking walls and shattering displays. Panic erupted. Syndicate mercenaries in sleek grey armor surged through the corridor, moving with precision. Mekra ducked beside him. They found us! No, Malik said through clenched teeth, drawing his sidearm. They never stopped watching. He peeked over the crate, counting 6 attackers. Too many for a clean escape. The smell of burnt metal filled the air. Dar's voice was calm, deadly. We fight, or we die. Malik's pulse steadied. Then let's make it loud enough for the syndicate to regret finding us. As the brothers rose to meet the charge, Malik thought briefly of Rihanna, of the moment he poured water into her hands. That choice had started something unstoppable. And now the universe had come to collect its debt. The smoke from the firefight still clung to Malik's jacket as he guided the Umoja out of Zambezi's orbit. His mind burned with the sound of blaster fire and screams echoing through the station corridors. They'd survived, barely, thanks to the Haroon brothers' precision and their own stubborn luck. But survival came at a price. Every contact he had left on Zambezi would now turn away when they saw his face. The silence in the cockpit was heavy. Dar stood behind him, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the endless black ahead. The syndicate will spread word of this, he said. They will hunt us to the edge of the suns. Malik didn't look back. Then we stay ahead of them. I've done worse. Tua's voice carried calm, but his gaze was sharp. Running is not living. I'm not running, Malik snapped. I'm staying alive. The argument died there, swallowed by the hum of the ship, but Malik felt the truth of Tua's words gnaw at him, Staying alive wasn't the same as having a purpose. They traveled for hours before Dar spoke again. "There is one place the Syndicate will not touch. The Afro-Sol Collective. You know it?" Malik's eyebrows rose. "Yeah, I've heard the stories." A group of settlers who broke away from the Earth Council, built their own orbiting colony out past the rim, said no to corporate law, no to military rule. "They protect their own," Dar said, "and they remember those who fight for dignity." Malik hesitated. "You think they'll take us in?" "They will hear you," Dar said. That is enough. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace, the sight of the Afro-Sol colony took Malik's breath away. Massive solar rings encircled a central sphere, glowing with soft amber light. Its design wasn't sterile like human stations. It felt organic, alive. Panels shaped like stretched cloth absorbed sunlight, shimmering in hues of gold, red and black. The docking request was accepted immediately, though the message carried no warmth. "State your purpose, traveler." Malik responded, "Seeking counsel and sanctuary." They were met at the landing bay by armed sentries, dressed in dark uniforms embroidered with traditional African patterns. At their center stood Elder Kamara, a tall woman with silver-threaded braids and eyes that seemed to hold whole constellations. "You bring Syndicate fire to our doorstep, Malik Carter," she said. Her tone was sharp, but not without empathy. "Do you know what that means for us?" "I didn't ask for that bounty," Malik replied, voice steady. "But I won't run from it either." Kamara studied him for a moment, then turned her gaze to the Haroun brothers. "And these?" Dar stepped forward. "We are sons of Rihanna of the Haroun. The human saved our mother's life. We guard his in return." The elder's eyes softened slightly. "Rihanna, I know that name. Her people once traded with us before the Syndicate poisoned their dunes." She turned back to Malik. "You have made powerful allies, Captain. That may be both your gift and your curse." She led them into the council chamber, a circular hall alive with holographic murals depicting black explorers, scientists and leaders from centuries past. The air carried the scent of incense and metal polish. 12 councillors sat in quiet observation. Kamara stood at the center. "This man seeks refuge," she said. "He carries the Syndicate's wrath, but also a story worth hearing." Malik stepped forward, heart pounding. "I didn't plan this war, but I've seen what the Syndicate does to planets that can't fight back. Haruma's people, the Haroun, they were stripped for profit. I can't undo that, but I won't help them anymore. If you'll give me a chance, I'll stand with anyone willing to push back." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. A councillor to Kamara's left leaned forward. "One pilot and 3 aliens against a corporate armada? You seek martyrdom?" Malik met his gaze. "No, I seek justice. Maybe that starts small." "Maybe it starts here." Kamara lifted her hand for silence. "He speaks truth, and truth is heavier than fear." She turned to Malik. "You will stay here for now. The collective will decide if your cause becomes ours. But understand, Malik Carter, from this moment on, your choices will echo far beyond your ship." He nodded, relief and dread tangled in his chest. "I understand." As he left the chamber, Dar murmured beside him, "The council weighs your heart, not your words. Be ready." Malik exhaled slowly. "For what?" "For the moment when your truth demands action." The alarms started before dawn. Malik woke to the deep hum of power surging through the Afro-Sol colony, a rhythm too fast, too erratic to be routine. Then came the low wail of emergency sirens, echoing through the metal corridors. He was on his feet instantly. Tua burst into the room, breathless. "The docks are under attack." Malik grabbed his jacket and weapon belt. "Syndicate?" "Yes," Dar confirmed, entering behind him. "Their ships breached the outer shields an hour ago." "The collective's defenses hold for now, but they will not last." Malik cursed under his breath. "They must have tracked us here." "Them following you does not shame us," said a calm voice from the doorway. Elder Kamara stood there, her robe fluttering slightly in the draft. "It only proves that your struggle is ours too." Malik nodded grimly. "Then let's make sure they regret picking this fight." They sprinted through the glowing corridors, passing families being ushered into bunkers and engineers arming defense drones. The colony that had seemed peaceful hours ago now pulsed with urgency, drums beating through the intercom, rallying calls in a dozen African dialects mixing with alien voices chanting battle hymns. At the main dockyard, chaos reigned. The Syndicate's assault ships rained plasma fire against the station's shields, lighting the bay in flashes of blue and orange. Afrosol defenders fired back from barricades built from cargo containers and scaffolding. Sparks cascaded through the air like falling stars. Malik ducked behind a rail with Dar and Mekra. "You two take the flank," he ordered. "Tua, you're with me. We hold the line near the control hub." Dar nodded. "The Haruns stand where their brothers stand." The first wave hit hard. Syndicate mercenaries in silver armor poured through the breach, firing in disciplined bursts. Malik returned fire, dropping one then another. His shoulder throbbed with pain from the old wound, but adrenaline burned through it. Beside him, Tua moved with precision, his alien rifle humming with bursts of amber light. He fought not with rage, but with rhythm, calm, deliberate, every motion purposeful. "More coming," Malik shouted. A grenade rolled toward them, hissing. Without thinking, Malik kicked it back into the breach. The explosion shook the deck, knocking him to one knee. Dar's voice crackled over comms. "Left flank secure, they fall back." Malik grinned. "Don't give them time to breathe." He vaulted over a barrier, leading a charge toward the advancing Syndicate troops. For the first time in years, he wasn't fighting for pay or survival or guilt. He was fighting for something that felt righteous. Then the comm buzzed again, as this time Kamara's voice, urgent. "Malik, their capital ship is targeting the reactors. If they breach those cores, the colony will burn." Malik's blood ran cold. "We can't let that happen." He turned to the brothers. "We split. Dar, Tua, get the civilians to safety. Mekra, with me. We'll handle the reactors." Mekra flashed a grin. "I like when you speak like a warrior." They sprinted through the maintenance tunnels, the air thick with smoke. The reactor chamber loomed ahead, a cathedral of light and heat. Syndicate engineers were already inside, planting charges. Malik raised his weapon. "Not today." The firefight that followed was fast and brutal. Plasma bolts screamed past, striking walls and scattering sparks. Mekra moved like a phantom, his staff striking with precision. Malik took cover behind a generator, firing until his rifle overheated. One mercenary lunged toward him with a blade. Malik ducked, slammed his elbow into the man's gut, and fired point blank. The sound echoed off metal walls. When it was over, the floor was littered with debris and scorched equipment. Mekra kicked one of the inactive explosives aside. "The reactor lives." Malik exhaled shakily, adrenaline still pounding through him. "So do we." Over comms, Dar's voice came again. "The fleet withdraws. They retreat into the dark." A cheer erupted through the colony. Human and alien voices united in raw relief. Malik leaned against the railing, sweat dripping down his neck. Kamara's voice came through, calm but proud. "You've defended more than a station today, Malik Carter. You've defended a future." He looked out the viewport, watching the Syndicate ships retreat into the void. "Then we made our mark," he said quietly. "Let's hope it lasts." The aftermath was quiet in a way that felt wrong. Malik walked through the charred remains of the dockyard, boots crunching against shattered glass and melted steel. The air was thick with the metallic scent of plasma burns and something heavier, grief. Smoke coiled lazily toward the ventilation shafts, curling like ghosts. Everywhere he looked, people were rebuilding. Engineers hauled cables, medics whispered prayers over the wounded, and children peeked out from behind bulkheads with wide, uncertain eyes. The colony still stood, but its spirit carried fresh scars. Dar joined him, his armor scorched, one shoulder plate missing. He moved with the quiet endurance of someone who'd seen too many battles to count. "The dead are being named," he said. "The living carry them," Malik nodded. "How many?" 34, Dar replied. 5 of them were ours. Malik swallowed hard. "I should have." "No," Dar interrupted, his tone sharp but calm. "You did what must be done. Grief seeks blame, but truth asks for patience. The words settled in Malik's chest, heavy but steadying. They walked together until they reached the memorial platform near the heart of the colony. Workers had erected a temporary wall of light, holographic panels displaying the names of those who'd fallen. Human names glowed beside Haroun script, side by side, equal in their sorrow. Malik stared at the display, his reflection flickering among the names. "We don't even speak the same language," he murmured, "but pain doesn't need translation." Kamara appeared beside them, her robes singed at the edges. "No, it doesn't," she said softly, "but remembrance does." She placed a small bowl of water on the base of the wall. Malik watched as it reflected the glowing names shimmering with color. "What's that for?" he asked. "It's tradition," Kamara said. "We pour water for the fallen, to cool their journey through the stars." The gesture hit him deeper than he expected. Water. Again. Always water. It was the thread running through every step of his story, binding him to people and places he'd never known he'd need. Without a word, he knelt and dipped his fingers into the bowl. The coolness spread through him like quiet forgiveness. Tua joined them, his arm bandaged but steady. "Among the Haroun," he said, "we burn songs instead of candles. Would your people allow it?" Kamara nodded. "Light and sound, both speak to the divine." Dar handed Malik a small sonic disc. "Play it," he said. "It carries our mother's song." Malik hesitated, then pressed the switch. A deep, resonant hum filled the chamber, rising slowly into melody. It wasn't human. The tones were strange, layered, almost unearthly, but something in the rhythm tugged at the heart like a memory. People began to gather, drawn by the sound. Humans, Haroun, and others stood together in silence, listening. The air vibrated with unity, grief becoming grace. When the song ended, no one spoke for several moments. The silence afterward was its own kind of prayer. Malik exhaled slowly, the ache in his chest easing just a little. "She'd be proud of you," he said quietly to Dar. Dar looked toward the wall of names. "She'd tell us pride is a burden too heavy to carry long." Malik smiled faintly. "Then maybe she'd just say we did all right." Kamara touched his shoulder. "You've given this colony more than protection, Malik. You've reminded us why we fight, not for profit or power, but for each other." He looked around, at the faces illuminated by the memorial light, at the children watching in silence, and felt a weight he hadn't realized he carried begin to lift. "Feels like a beginning," he said. "It is," Kamara replied. "But beginnings are fragile. The syndicate will return. And when they do, they'll find a people no longer afraid." Malik nodded slowly. "Then I'll be here when they come." As he turned to leave, he glanced once more at the bowl of water. The reflection rippled faintly, catching the light of the names. It looked like stars moving on the surface of a river, a reminder that even in loss something flowed forward. For the first time in a long while, the silence didn't hurt. It felt like peace. The stars over Haruma shimmered like old memories, soft and distant. Malik watched them through the cockpit glass as Umoja descended toward the desert moon once more. The ship hummed gently beneath his hands, its systems running smoother than they had in months. The Haroun brothers stood behind him, silent but alert, their faces illuminated by the twin suns rising below. "Feels strange coming back," Malik said quietly. "Didn't think I'd ever see this place again." Dar's deep voice carried steady warmth. "The sand remembers every footstep, even those that try to run from it." Malik smiled faintly. "Now you sound like your mother." "She taught well," Dar replied. The descent through Haruma's atmosphere filled the cabin with golden light. The planet stretched out beneath them, the same endless dunes, the same metallic winds. But now Malik saw it differently, not as a wasteland, but as a world that had given him purpose. They landed near the old ridge where it had all begun. The place where Rihanna had taken her final breath. The grave was still there, untouched by scavengers, covered in a soft blanket of silver sand. Malik's heart tightened as he stepped out into the heat. For a long moment, no one spoke. The air buzzed faintly, the wind carrying a low humming tone that reminded him of her son's songs. Tua knelt first, pressing his hand to the sand. She rests still. The sons have not forgotten. Mekra set down a small metal jar etched with glowing runes. "From the colony," he said. "The water you defended now joins her." Malik nodded, his throat thick. She'd like that. They worked together, placing the jar beside the old hull shard Malik had used as a marker. He traced his fingers along it, feeling the grooves he'd carved months ago. The metal was warm from the suns, almost alive. Dar turned to Malik. "You brought her peace once. Now you bring her sons home." Malik looked at the three of them, their faces solemn but serene. "You sure this is where you want to stay, after everything we've been through?" Tua smiled gently. "Our journey ends where hers began. Haruma needs voices again." "We will build, teach, and remember." Malik exhaled slowly. "Then I guess it's time I let you go." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small pendant, a brass disc, worn and simple, engraved with a single Swahili word, Uhuru, freedom. "My grandmother gave me this before I left Earth," he said it kept her safe through storms that tried to break her. He pressed it into Dar's palm. "I think your mother would have understood what it means." Dar studied the pendant for a long moment, then bowed his head. "And we offer this in return." He produced a small vial of Haruma's glowing water, sealed in a carved glass shell. "Drink when you forget why you fly. It will remind you." Malik took it carefully, his reflection rippling in its surface. "I'll keep it close." The suns climbed higher, bathing the desert in fierce light. The brothers began to chant softly in their native tongue, a song of return, low and rhythmic, carrying both sorrow and strength. Malik stood quietly, letting the sound wash over him. It wasn't a goodbye in the human sense. It was a promise that nothing sacred ever truly ended. When the chant faded, Dar clasped Malik's forearm firmly. "You gave water to one who thirsted. You gave sons their mother's peace. Whatever comes next, our names will follow yours." Malik met his gaze, emotion thick in his chest. "Then make sure you live them well." He walked back to Umoja, the sand whispering beneath his boots. As the ramp closed and the engines hummed to life, he looked out one last time. The three brothers stood near the grave, sunlight catching their armor until they looked like living statues. He whispered, "Rest easy, Rianha. They're home now." As Umoja lifted into the sky, the desert wind rose again, a low melodic hum that followed him until the stars swallowed Haruma whole. The stars stretched endless above him, sharp and clear, each one pulsing like a memory that refused to fade. Malik sat alone in the cockpit of Umoja, the hum of the engines steady beneath him. Haruma was just a fading point of light now, swallowed by the dark. He held the vial the Harun brothers had given him, the faint glow inside pulsing softly with his heartbeat. He turned it in his hands, watching the light shift through the glass. The desert water caught starlight the way his grandmother's eyes once caught wisdom, quiet, knowing, eternal. He could still hear her voice in the back of his mind, slow and rhythmic, like the hymns she'd hum on hot nights back in the colonies. "Child, when you give, the world remembers." He smiled faintly. "Guess it remembered," he whispered. The ship's console pinged softly, long-range communication requests, new job offers, the universe already calling him forward again. But Malik didn't answer, not yet. For once, he let silence breathe. He leaned back in the pilot's chair and closed his eyes. Faces drifted behind them, Rihanna's serene final smile, Dar's solemn gaze, Tua's calm wisdom, Mekra's laughter that always filled the silence. They were written into his story now, carved into the quiet spaces between each heartbeat. When he opened his eyes again, the glow from the vial reflected across the cockpit like liquid dawn. He reached forward, placing it beside the brass pendant that once hung from his neck. The two objects shimmered together, one born of Earth, one of Haruma, and for a moment Malik felt the distance between stars collapse into something small, human, and real. The comms crackled suddenly. "Captain Carter," came a familiar voice, Nia from Zambezi Station. Word spreading. Afro-Sol's standing firm. You made something move, Malik. Even out here, people are choosing sides. Malik's lips curved into a quiet grin. Never was much for sides. I just chose people. You always do, she said softly. Try not to get yourself killed doing it. Can't make promises, he replied, then ended the transmission. He stared out into the void again. The stars ahead seemed closer now, not like distant fires but like destinations, places waiting to remember what kindness could build. His navigation system blinked for attention, listing possible routes: a trade corridor through the Zeta Belt, a humanitarian mission near the Outer Reach, an escort gig for Afro-Sol's expansion convoy. Malik's fingers hovered above the controls. Any direction could be his, but for the first time he didn't feel like he was running. Instead, he whispered, "All right, old girl, let's see where the next story starts." The engines purred as he guided Umoja into open space. Outside, the universe flowed like a great dark river, and he felt himself moving with it, not against it. He opened a private log on the ship's recorder. "Captain Malik Carter, entry 457, he began, his voice low but steady. "I used to think survival was just about keeping yourself alive. Turns out, it's about keeping something bigger alive. Hope, maybe. A little piece of what makes us human." He paused, glancing at the pendant and the vial. "A long time ago, I shared my last water with a stranger. Thought it was just the right thing to do. But it wasn't just water. It was a promise. To remember that even out here, where the stars don't care and the void doesn't forgive, we still can." He smiled, closing the log. Outside the viewport, the stars thickened, rivers of light running through the dark sea of the galaxy. Malik reached for the throttle, and Umoja surged forward, cutting through the black like a prayer carried by wind. He didn't know where the path would lead. Maybe another desert, maybe another story. But he knew this much. Water, kindness, and memory flowed forever, from one soul to another, across planets and time, binding every act of compassion like ripples on an endless sea. "If you believe small acts of humanity can change the galaxy," he said softly, voice steady and full, "then keep walking this path with me. Subscribe, and stay with the story." He looked once more at the stars and whispered, "The water remembers." And then Umoja disappeared into the black, leaving only light behind.